my name's Oliver Masciarotte. People call me OMas. And I've worked in the consumer audio and pro audio industry for many years. Customers like Matsushita and, well, that's what they were called back in the day. Sony, Pioneer, Warner Brothers, Universal, guys like that. Been making records for many years. And this stuff is something that I'm really excited about. Something Steve said, you know, if you're having trouble with your room, just get headphones. It's like, duh. Yeah, and, you know, you can carry them around in a little case. I brought one of my sort of medium pairs, boom mic, so I can have conferences, but there's a not scary expensive pair of cans, and WireWorld's third-party wire to plug into it, and a DSD-capable DAC that you can use with your phone or your computer. Has a battery, has a headphone amplifier. It's a DAC. It does everything. Hey, Chuck. Does everything. Wonderful little box. Let me show you a few others since we're doing that right now. We'll put this on the bendy head. Whee! You're gonna have. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but you really should get a headphone stand if you have headphones, believe me. If they fall on the floor, it's really expensive to get them repaired. Okay, that's not going, so here's some more stuff. Let's get some more stuff up. So, yes, my most expensive cans are $2,000. Here's a $1,000 pair, West Tones, W60s, beautiful sounding 6 balanced armature drivers inside. Lovely pair of cans. I just got these 2 days ago. These are called Zolentos. They're made by Biodynamic, German company. Absolutely astoundingly good, also for $1,000. The cool thing about, well, the title of this talk and about portable audio in general these days is that it's much higher fidelity than your dad's hi-fi, you know. It's higher fidelity than what you may have at home. And the form factor, let me bust this thing out. Just set it down. Everything keeps getting, I wouldn't say smaller, but more convenient. So here's another battery-powered, in other words, self-powered DAC, does DXD, and by the way, I'm going to throw around a bunch of TLAs, which are 3-letter acronyms, which means if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, please raise your hand and we'll talk about it. The whole point of this is for me to get through the non-existent, I guess we're not going to have a presentation today, so we'll just forget that. But basically, it's all about questions and answers. So if you folks, you know, I'd like to get into that. I'm going to just give you a little bit of background. These battery-powered guys, this one and the Sony, this is from Centrance. It's called a DAC Portable. I don't know if you can read that. Cool thing about these both is they have their own batteries, which means they won't pull down your phone's battery. Okay? Kind of important. They're both very, very high resolution. They can handle pretty much, not every, but most every commercial file that you can purchase. So, you know, 8 times CD sample rates, that kind of thing. Very high res. DSD, which is what Super Audio CDs used. If you know what that is, you can buy those files. These will both handle that as well. But phones are phones, frankly. This may look like a phone, but this is a Calyx. It's made in Calyx M is the model. It's a Korean DAP, as they're called. I really hate that digital audio player name, so I like to call them HRA portables because this is fairly portable. It's kind of chunky, but it's pretty portable. Plays, again, all high-res files that you'd want to buy on the web, pretty much. And the cool thing is, it's a phone without the phone. And I know that sounds kind of stupid. Why, you know, we all have our computer in our pocket, right? Why would you want to do that? Well, it's because there's a radio in this puppy, and it's a cell phone radio, and it's a very chatty little radio. It's always talking. Always, always, always talking. For the same reason that you don't want to use a plain old computer as your home server, you don't want to use a phone as your high-res player if you can help it. So these guys may or may not have a radio. Here's another one. This is a beautiful thing called an Echo Box. They're downstairs. Calyx is not here, but Echo Box is over in the hi-fi area, in the headphone area. And the Echo Box has a Wi-Fi radio in it, which means it can stream TIDAL, which we'll get into in a little bit. Does anybody have TIDAL? Does anybody know what it is? Oh, wow. Nice. Okay, so about half of you. TIDAL is one of there are now 4, I think, lossless streaming services out there. Lossless being not the data, once you're hearing it, the data is the same data that was present on a CD, for instance, that you'd have spinning on a transport, except it's coming to you from a network server somewhere in Denver or Stockholm, or it doesn't really matter. It's coming to you over a public network. So the difference between these two guys is the Calyx has no radios, which means there's no RFI, radio frequency interference. There's no radios getting in the way of your audio. This guy does, but it's been architected to keep any degradation to a minimum. Sir? Well, no, it's not so much for downloading. It's for streaming, and there's a difference. Oh my goodness. So, yay. Thank you, man. So the difference is downloading is how you buy stuff, but streaming is live packets. Oh, there we go. Streaming is live packets flying to you. Say you're watching a YouTube video. That's streaming, right? It's what's in the olden days referred to as store and forward. In other words, the stuff gets stored on your woo, this one's turned off. There we go. Stuff gets stored on your computer temporarily. It's not permanently there. So let's take a look at this stuff real quick. Tiniest switch in the world on that microphone. All right, let's close all this stuff up. And these guys, incredibly, well, let's leave that where it is. Incredibly comfortable. I know a bunch of you, let me just get the Etymotics. I haven't talked about them yet. So Etymotics is a really, they were basically the first company to do what everyone else is doing now. They've been doing this stuff for a long time. And here's their least expensive model. I've got a whole bunch of tips in there, so it's kind of hard to tease it out. But there they are. They're L-shaped. So they're really easy to put in your ear. I know you can't see that, but they have a 3-flange tip. In other words, it's sort of stepped, like Devo's hat, if any of you remember those. So they're little tiny Devo hats. The cool thing about them is it fits almost any ear. So when you put this thing in, the first tip engages, then the second one, and if you're like Man Mountain, you get the 3rd flange because you have really big ears. But generally, with the Westones, for instance, you put them in your ears, and they're like in your ear canal, and a lot of people go, this is weird. They're not used to it. People are used to cans on their head, but they're not used to in-ear stuff. These guys have a very, very superficial tip. They sit in your ear, but just barely. Extremely comfortable. Cable doesn't get all tangled, which is, I know it sounds stupid, but really important thing. Anyway, let's get into the talk, if we can. So Yes, it is a capacious tent. There's an awful lot that kind of falls into this category. And I think of those things as the portables, like what I have here, lifestyle stuff, which we're not really going to talk about, but think about, very briefly, what was personal audio like for your mom and dad? That was a different era, right? But people, well, like few people had headphones, but basically you had a console stereo or you had a tabletop radio or something like that. Those things still exist and they're still awesome, and they have a very, very, I think, important place in the home, especially if you have children who you're trying to say, stop listening to that Disney stuff, listen to this, you know, listen to Zeppelin or something, I don't know, whatever. You know, you're trying to get them into it. Sorry, had to do that. Another thing that I think is personal is wireless speakers. Yes. Hello. I guess I need two of these running at once. So the guy on the left is a Name QB or a Cube. It's a modern tabletop radio. And I think this is a very personal product. It's this big. It literally is a little cube. But it does everything you could want. And it sounds astronomically good. They designed sound systems for Bentley motor cars. And they took that know-how that they built into Bentley, and this thing will play louder than you could ever care to play, zero distortion that you can detect, and it sounds absolutely beautiful, and it has wonderful dispersion as well. At the other extreme is that little guy, which is made by Sound Matters. It's this big. It sits in your pocket. And it does not sound like the crap that you buy at Best Buy. I'm sorry, any Best Buy people, but you know, it's not a consumer electronics piece of gear that costs $79. That thing costs a little over $200, but it's incredibly hi-fi. It's self-powered. It takes phone calls. You can sit it next to you and it'll take your calls. It has a mic and stuff. Very, very modern piece, but very high fidelity for something that sits in your pocket. And I think that's also very personal. So let's look at wireless speakers real quick. Those are some of the things to think about. You know, the first guy is inputs. You know, does it have a line input? That may look various depending on the thing, but how long does the battery run if it's battery powered? And the third one's really important, Bluetooth and or Wi-Fi. So can you talk to it wirelessly? And of course, fidelity, duh. We talked about smartphones already, so I'll just say how much extra storage and headphone power, that next to the last bullet. I don't know how many of you have really fancy cans, but especially planar magnetics, and we'll try and talk about that in a bit. Those, the Audizies I've got here are planar magnetics. Some of them, and I won't mention, some of them are designed by people who kind of live in their own little space and don't realize that amplifiers need to be designed within certain specs. Anyway, how much power do you need to power your headphones? And of course, fidelity. One of the differences between a phone and a HRA portable is that second bullet. Here's some nice sounding phones. If you want a phone to do this kind of work, I don't recommend it, but what the hey. And here's a couple of DACs to go with it. One of them's the DAC portable. Another one is a very new guy. This is a MQA, self-powered DAC from MyTech. They're downstairs. I guess they're upstairs. Sorry, we're downstairs. So this is a great solution if you have a phone and you want to divorce the audio stuff from the phone stuff, and that's those two DACs I showed you earlier are good examples of that. The Sony. There they are. Whee! And I think a better approach is this class, these DAPs as they're called, and I'll be writing an article on that fairly soon, talking about a whole bunch of different ones. But again, things to think about. The balanced out bullet, I have my fake pointer, I'm doing that. Underneath headphone power, balanced outs. If anybody in the house have balanced cabling for their headphones? Okay, we don't have to, oh, we do. A couple guys in back, cool. So for super fidelity, that's an option, and some of these guys have that, which is very, very nice. Let me show you one more. Where did I put him? The Pono. I don't know if I brought it today, actually. So there's a couple. The old Acoustic Research brand has a new DAP. Of course, Estelle and Kern, they kind of redefined the whole product category. The Echo Box I have here, Onkyo and Pioneer, two different versions of sort of the same product, and they support MQA, those two. Very nice. The Pono, those little yellow Toblerones. I have one. I don't know if I brought it today, sorry. Fantastic sounding little thing, not very expensive either. It's just a great product, and of course the Calyx M, which we've got there. Q-Style's here, I think, at the show, not sure. Okay, yes, as Steve said, when in doubt, use headphones. We'll just jump past that. Actually, one really important bullet from the last one, hearing protection. The fact that you have a in-ear phone means that the outside world has been taken away. And that's really important from a hearing protection point of view. So if you are on an airplane for 8 hours, you have reached the limit of hearing damage very often. And people don't realize this. What? What did he say? Hearing damage? Yes. Remember, hearing damage is all about how loud for how long. So it doesn't have to be really loud. It can just be sort of loud for a long time. That produces hearing damage. When you have these guys in, you can't hear jack, as they say. Your hearing is protected from the outside world, which means if you're skateboarding or riding a bicycle, you're going to be dead in 10 minutes, but if you're driving a car, you'll be arrested, things like that. So watch out. Anyway, really important. Okay, so let's talk about phones specifically. Let's grab Mr. EL8s. That's what these guys are called. So the transducer's inside, it's flat, it's like a voice coil that's flat. This is called a planar magnetic. So the voice coil, instead of being cylindrical and suspended in a donut-shaped magnet, is flat and has magnets on one side of it. But on the other side, the outside, it's got slots. In other words, the transducer can talk to the outside as well as to your ears. This is an open back mic, headphone, whatever. And closed ones, the cup is sealed. It's like a transmission line loudspeaker. The result is very, very different frequency response. And I urge you to head downstairs and listen to the two and see which one you like better. Acoustically speaking, design speaking, it's a lot harder to make a beautiful sounding closed headphone. Just from physics, sorry physics, but when you have a little tiny container that big, it's a Helmholtz resonator. In other words, it's like an organ pipe, very, very small one, and so you have resonances that are very hard to control. So, buds versus earphones, just stay away from buds. It was, Apple's idea of a good time. They do a lot of great things. That is not one of them. They are incredibly lo-fi. The really important thing about an earbud is they have no low end to speak of. So if you want bass, and most of us love bass, you won't get it in an earbud. You have to have the thing in your ear, on your ear, something like that, because the driver is this big, and it's hovering next to your ear, so you'll never get really good low end. If you plug these things into your ear, it's like, whoa, 20 hertz, right there, in your head, wonderful thing. In-ears versus IEMs, that concept of in-ear monitors. There's a couple of vendors downstairs that make in-ear monitors. Those are for singers and guitar players and folks that are on stage performing for you. They have a very different requirement than we do listening to full bandwidth music. Beware of IEMs. They are not what you want. So dynamic versus electrostatics, dynamic versus balanced armatures. We don't have time for any of this, so we'll just jump over it. And crazy hybrid designs, which there are quite a few. The very last thing, why are there so many drivers? I hate to say this, because I love a lot of the vendors downstairs or upstairs, whatever, but there's a marketing arms race out there for in-ear headphones. How many drivers do you have? You know, this has 6. 6 is really a nice number. 12, kind of not so good. 15, not so good. The point is the reason why balanced armature headphones have so many drivers is to make them incredibly loud. But remember, guitar players have been sitting next to a Marshall stack their entire life. They can't hear. I've done recordings with a lot of talent. They are profoundly deaf. You know, performing musicians have a lot of hearing problems, so they have to make their in-ear monitors really loud. That's why they put 12 drivers in them. And then they could sell them to you saying, these have 12 drivers, it's more, it's better. Well, it's not so much better. Anyway, customize your cans. Oh, did I bring my AIs with me? Doggone it, I didn't. Okay, so these guys, this little pile here, is a company from Denmark. They're sold through Ortofon, the guys that make, you know, cartridges. We all know Ortofon. And they're called AI, I guess is how you pronounce it. Anyway, the cool thing is you pick a headband, you pick a transducer, you pick a pad, you pick a cable, and you basically build a set of headphones. And they're not expensive. They sound tremendously good for the price. And this little thing tells you sort of what it'll sound like. Highly recommend them. Love my pair. Absolutely love them. ZMF is also here at the show. Zach and his wife are wonderful people, and they are good at making over-the-ear headphones that are tailored to a particular taste. So go take a listen. Fun stuff. Hello? There we go. So, I'm sorry. If it's cheap, please don't buy it. Yeah, he's just giggling. It's so true. There is one exception to that, and I don't think they're here at the show. They might be. Maybe somebody can tell me. A company called One More. It's a Chinese manufacturer. Number One More is the name of the brand. They make really inexpensive, like in this range, $50, $65 cans. They sound different from the Etymotics, but they're equally wonderful, and they're very cheap. Now, they're not going to be a pair of Zalento remotes, but they're nice. They're really nice. And so, you know, if you're starting out and you're trying to figure out what to do, check it out, dude. Check it out. What else we got? And of course, this is also part of being personal. EQ. God forbid you'd use EQ in your hi-fi system. It's like, why not? Tone controls are your mom and dad's hi-fi. Nowadays, you have real usable equalization. Dial in to taste. You know, with headphone listening, I always dial in a 3 dB shelf, which is this is low frequency, this is high frequency. So a shelf looks like up and then flat. It's a shelf shape, right? So at low frequency, it's going to lift up the low end and then keep it louder. And 3 dB is not very much. And if you do that at about 100, 120, 90, somewhere in that range, again, to your taste, it'll sound a lot more like a pair of loudspeakers playing back that music. I also like to put very, very high frequency shelves in there to peak the ultrasonic stuff. One of the nice things about the new range of headphones, these guys are flat to past 35 kilohertz. So if you don't know what that means, it means, you know, your dog would really groove on these. Bats come flying into your house. No, just kidding. But frankly, people go, why should I care? Well, I was in that camp too until I reviewed a set of super tweeters and realized what that high frequency stuff does to the placement of sound in a room, in a fake room, the room you're listening to, the room that the microphones were put up in when they recorded it. It helps reproduce that in your head, and it's an absolutely wonderful thing. What else? Build a server, join an audio society, and last but not least, don't believe everything you read, kids, because it's not true. To be frank, there are as many opinions on the interwebs as there are people in the world, and most of them don't know jack. So anyway, there you go. So try this stuff out. You know, start with something cheap if you want, or if something just grabs your imagination, go for it. It's a wonderful thing. And I think Don? Oh, it's Vince. Okay, so there you go. PowerPoint corrupts absolutely. There's me, and there's that, and yep, we are done. Boom. So, a book, shameless plug. Buy my book, please. No. But more importantly, explore this concept of personal audio, especially now that headphones are totally on fire. It's just a wonderful time to be listening to music. Yeah, I can't say enough. Let me kill this and bring up TIDAL just to show you that real quick. I have to take my glasses off because we're local now. TIDAL. Hello, hello. Whoops. We're on 2 displays. Let me bring that up. Yep. Okay, so the janky Wi-Fi is not going to let me do this, but this is that streaming service I was talking about. And this will deliver CD quality audio to you. I listen to it in the car. I listen to it at home. I love it. But more importantly, I have to say, I don't know if you can, anybody read that little word at the top there? It says master. So one of the cool things about TIDAL is that they've recently started streaming MQA data. Real quick, because everybody know what MQA is? No, okay, I'll go for you. Basically, it's a completely new ecosystem for audio production and distribution. And for you folks, the consumer, it unfortunately means you have to buy another copy of that lovely Sarah Brightman file you've been listening to for the past 10 years, whatever, because it's different data. The nice thing about it is that the data appears to be compact disc data, just like everything else TIDAL sends out, right? CD, 16 bits, 4041 kilohertz sampling rate. But if you have, remember that MyTech Clef I showed you on an earlier slide, one of those little portable DACs. If you have a DAC, I have a MyTech Brooklyn at home. If you have a DAC that can decode it, it will take that CD data and puff it up to what it was when the mastering engineer was listening to it. You know, she has some monstrous set of loudspeakers, incredibly beautiful amplifiers, you know, solid platinum wiring, the whole 9 yards, and basically that's what you're listening to as well. So the TIDAL Masters are another name for MQA. It's kind of cool, folks. So not sure how that'll all fall out, but it could be really, really neat. Oh, 2 CDs recently were also put up for sale. One from a Japanese label, and I can't remember who the other guys are. Anybody know? They're MQA encoded CDs. So again, if you have a DAC in your system, that's an MQA DAC. It'll see the MQA data and it'll blow it up or inflate it back out to the original sample rate and word length. So, you know, some of the stuff that is on TIDAL is 384 kilohertz. It's DXD data. So very, very 8 times sample rate of a CD at 24-bit word length. Very, very high resolution data. And it sounds quite lovely. So anyway.
Is that experience you have to have in hardware or in software?
Glad you asked. This thing is an example of a software decoder. It does 3/4 of the job. There's one piece that's not taken care of by a software decoder, and the only way it can be done is through a hardware DAC, and that gives you complete end-to-end beauty, I guess is the best way to say it. But this software will get you close, and we've done some listening tests. There is a difference. The best way to do it is get a MQA DAC, but yes, you can do it in software. The folks at Sonic Studio make Amara, which is one of my 2 reference software players. That is in the process of doing MQA decoding. And my other favorite player, Ordervana Plus, horrible name, fantastic product, also does MQA decoding in software if you don't have an MQA DAC. Pardon? Yes, they're both Mac OS. Yes, don't use Windows for audio. Yes.
Do any of the DAPs end up doing?
Yes, thank you for asking. This guy, a future firmware update will probably do MQA. If you ask them, they'll go. The Onkyo and Pioneer DAC already does it today. So if you buy one of theirs, it has MQA decoding built in. Again, it's built into the DAC, so it does end-to-end. It's correct in all senses. Let me think. Those are the only 2 I know, except the Mytech Clef, which is not a player per se, it's just a DAC. What else? Hello, sir. Yes, I'm back.
So you would say that there's enough of a wow factor with this MQA to invest in new product and new everything that you're...
Yeah. Go listen and decide for yourself. It's like anything else. You know, the title of this talk is personal audio, right? My idea of high fidelity is not your idea. Believe me. It's crazy being a reviewer because I have a very particular view on life, having made records, and listening to records are 2 very different things. But yeah, it makes a big difference, to be brief, if you can notice it. And towards that end, I'll ask you to try something else when you get out of the show at the end of the weekend. That is, train your hearing to be better at hearing stuff. If you're old, if you've been working with jackhammers all your life, it doesn't mean you can't hear well. It just means you haven't trained your hearing. It's a training exercise. Your brain is extremely plastic. In other words, it can change. Day to day it changes. Actually, moment to moment it changes. You know when you walk around the show that your hearing is adapting. And the reason why is your ears are attached to this wetware inside your head. It's highly adaptable. So teach it to listen better. It's simply a learning process, and there are some, I left the slides out for it, but there are some nice pieces of software that you can get for free or you can buy for very little money that will help you teach your hearing to be more acute. Yes, sir.
Where would you have those resources, like on your website or something?
No. Hang on. Let me go find it. He was asking where that stuff is. Let me see if I can find the slide for it. So while I'm digging, I have a blog, I have a website. That was all in that previous slide. So at the very bottom of that slide is one of my websites. You can try that for starters. Let's look at, sorry to jump through this real quick. Servers. Oh, that's all there is. Okay, sorry. Harman. The guys at Harman, didn't they just get bought by Samsung or something? Yeah. Harman makes something called How to Listen, I think it's called. So go look that up on the interwebs. You'll probably find it. And then a company, I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. There's a company over in Minneapolis that they're called Audiophile, not with a PH, but with an F, Engineering. And they make a little thing called something I can't remember. It's an ear training tool, and you can run it on your phone. So you put your cans in, you plug into your phone, and you run this app, and it helps you to be a better listener. It helps you to say, you know, walk into a room and go, man, that 7K is killing me. And the guy looks at you and goes, oh, your karate is better than mine. So it's a good thing. Let me park this, and I'll start packing up. Other questions? Good. Well, I hope you folks enjoy the show, and thank you very much for coming to visit me with my janky talk.